Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News. And yes, it's me and William. We're back again for another discussion, but also to wrap up the special report on Ukraine. And very interesting topics tonight. I do have to say so myself. And me and William talked a little bit before the show, so we're in sync, I believe, with what we're going to be talking about. Boy, Karen, I'm glad you're here tonight. You like this show. So Karen is our moderator. If you got a comment or question, she'll make sure it gets to me if I happen not to catch it. And yeah, happy Friday. Friday night. We're into June already. Not too many more months and we'll be voting. So, and good evening to Susan. So tonight, I wanted to get into a lot of the corruption and of Ukraine. And where I went was, I searched around and I ran a lot through fact checkers. And so I decided on horribly Wikipedia. And they say it pretty well. They basically tell you it's been corrupt almost up to not even a year ago. It's pretty widespread. They did an Ernst and Young put Ukraine amongst the 3 most corrupt nations alongside Colombia and Brazil. That was 2012. 2015, they called it the most corrupt nation in Europe. Then, let's see, in 2021, they had it, Ukraine was 22nd out of 180 countries. And they said Russia was way behind it. Russia was like towards the end of the list. So really, they had a corrupt nation all the way up to 2021. So I could see Zelensky having a lot of problems with that. And they say it's basically Ukrainian political leaders who used to be integrated into the communist nomenclature. It's the ruling elite over there. And before the collapse of the Soviet Union, the politicians created an authoritarian oligarchic governance. And in Ukraine, where corrupt became really bad, with no chances of implement of Europe, the choice of the Ukrainian people. Now, Ukrainian economist Ole, he performed a comparison to the corruption globally. And he said, basically, there was no transparency. It was a very corrupt country. Comparable, he claimed in 2021, or 2020 and 2021, worse than Africa, Uganda. And they said that
Really?
was, yeah, go ahead.
So communism runs on corruption. It takes the lowest common denominators and makes them the government in any place. And so it is just ripe with corruption. And Ukraine is a new government. It's only, 30 years old now? So it's slowly working its way out of corruption through the vote. But it takes time. And nations that have more central, better governmental controls. Like Russia was the center of government, so they had better controls. But in the Eastern European countries, there wasn't that great a control, and Ukraine was mostly what they considered agrarian, and so there was the least amount of control exercised on Ukraine, and so there was just a lot of corruption there. Everything functioned through corruption, and it's going to take time to work it out. They've come a very, very long ways, though.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they sure have. And I think Zelensky may have been a good thing for him because that's when it all started coming out. They bribes were basically a lot of it, and not only that, but they had the oligarchs that were taking of the money and fleeing the country as they were being found out. Um, um, Now, according to the United States agency, USAID, the main causes of corruption, they said, was a weak justice system, an over-controlling, non-transparent government combined with business, political ties, and a weak civil society. And corruption was regularly discussed in the Ukrainian media. The thing, William, that I noticed right there is USAID, that's Soros. And then you have that civil society in there.
Really?
Yeah.
So USAID is a way that the United States gives emergency aid to countries in trouble. And so they do a lot of looking at who's corrupt, who isn't corrupt, where do they place money, where do they not place money to get emergency funds in. It's not like the World Bank.
No, it's connected to the State Department.
This is just direct aid.
Well, now, USAID eventually ended up in the hands of Soros, so that's what was going on with Haiti. And the State Department.
Are supposed to be handling that, and they handed it over to private government-private partnerships, and that's a bad deal because then somebody like Soros could wingle their way in.
That's what he did, and spread it out with the different foundations and organizations, like we've seen with the civil societies and open societies. And that, they kind of, I was surprised when I seen civil societies in that, because of all things, Wikipedia usually is on more of a liberal side than it is, they tend to pad it a little bit. So like I said, this
They're
really...
proud of it.
Oh, I know.
They're proud of their public-private partnerships, boy. They just throw them right out there and say, hey, look at us.
Yeah. Now, the biggest bribery was to the police, the health system, the education system, and that started in the late 2000s. And then it went all the way into the justice system, they said. And so it was not only that, but then they had political corruption. They said even their Supreme Court may have been tainted. And it basically election issues. They said the use of administration resources that were being used to sway the way that the country was going to be run. Boy, there's a lot of stuff I can't say in this one. Not only that, they got caught with cyber attacks on other countries. And so there was a lot that was going on. I'm going to say the last 3 presidents were all corrupt before Zelensky. And the last one, I did the show on him a couple nights ago, where how corrupt he was, and he took the money, he ran, and then he was labeled as most wanted, and then turned around and we were giving him a visa to get into the United States after he was listed on the Department of Justice's site. So, yeah.
He probably bribed his way in.
Yeah, more than likely. So, That's pretty much showing you guys that it is corrupt. And it goes on to say about the Azov militants that a lot of it before, like 2014, is when it really started building up. And Putin was um, very upset because what they were doing is it showed corruption of the militants and the separatists were going after the eastern Ukrainians and Russians. It was mostly Russians. About 80-90% Russians lived there, but it was mixed with Ukrainians. And they wanted to know who was who, and if the Ukrainians were actually sympathizers. And so they just fired on all of them. It just didn't matter. So it really shows that Putin was, in ways, right in claiming that they were going after his people and torturing and making demands. And so that's why they went to Crimea. But he had always promised to keep the Minsk agreement and take those few states. So that is pretty much showing, and you guys can look it up on Wikipedia. Look up the corruption in Ukraine. And not only that, it's called Russo-Ukraine War. And it just lays it all out to back me up on what I've been saying all this week. And the newest one is Serbia. It's remained neutral. And the president, Alexander Vucic, he's tried to walk the line very cautiously right now. And I think he is upsetting NATO because he wants to remain neutral. And he's very aware of what happened with NATO and its aggression. And then a lot of the Serbian people will speak out how horrible it was being bombed by NATO. And so there's still a huge parts of Belgrade that are still bombed out and they haven't been able to fix. And so they're not, this Vucic and Serbia aren't very happy with NATO. And they're not so pro-Russia either. They're not pro-West with Ukraine. So basically, they would like to stay neutral. And now Serbia is linked and is now has a new contract with Russia for gas. And they did pay in rubles. So basically, this new gas storage facility inside of Serbia, this is very interesting because their contract was about to run out. And so what the president said is, we're going to look out for our people. We have partnered up with Russia on gas for a very long time. This doesn't mean we're pro-Russia. It doesn't mean that they're pro anything. They are just going to take care of the Serbian people. And they said as much at Davos, too, and the World Economic Forum last weekend. And according to what I'm hearing now, because I did Bilderberg this morning, I heard that he was even going to Bilderberg to repeat the same thing. Their priority is their people. Their priority is their own. And that if the press doesn't like it, then that's their problem. And hopefully they won't. Yeah, go ahead.
Historically, Switzerland's been the same way. They've been neutral, and it's been a place where people could gather, like Davos, where there's no one way or the other. It's just a neutral place that somebody could meet and do their banking and whatnot. And so Serbia's kind of trying to follow the Swiss plan.
And weirdly enough, they said that Armenia is another one that is basically through this 10-year contract with Belgrade, and it expires tomorrow. So they're going to renegotiate and ask for prices that Serbian people will be paying also. So there's a lot going on with those small countries over there that just want to stay neutral, and they don't want to have a gas problem. And what I'm learning is, with if Serbia does it and Armenia does it, and also Hungary, they're the other ones staying very neutral on this, and their economies are growing with the gas. Their economies are booming now, where everybody else has pretty much been left behind. Uh, so this makes for what Hungary is saying is that, and even Georgia, um, they're both saying that their countries are growing, but at the same time, they don't want to upset the European Union. They don't want to upset the UN or NATO. They just want to be able to stand neutral. So that's,
Really?
yeah, go ahead.
So an economy is the base for which you feed your people and you can build your military. So if they keep their economies heated up, they'll have more money for things like arms and manufacturing that they wouldn't otherwise have. They're being actually smart about it, although they're working at cross purposes with NATO by getting supplied with fuel from an enemy country.
Now, the other thing was, they didn't, Hungary and Serbia, they say they're not too keen on the sanctions at this point, because they said they would like them to not affect the food, medicine, agriculture, and they said that this has been happening in Russia, which is causing hurt to everybody else, especially Europe. And so they're asking NATO to back off enough that um, Russia can get the food and the medicine and everything out to the rest of the world. Um, that's the only thing they're asking, and they said they've asked very nicely, and um, that they're planning on having a meeting, I believe, this weekend with quite a few of the EU, with Serbia, and I believe it's Armenia. I don't hold me on that. It's either Armenia or Hungary, or it might be all of them. But they wanted to go to Bilderberg first and have a discussion. And, like I said this morning, this is where they go and they talk privately. And see, that's the stuff I'm not too keen on, is when they go and they do stuff at Davos and then they go talk about the same thing at Bilderberg, but it's in private. Um, so, William, let's talk about basically what's been unfolding in Ukraine. There's big updates the last few days, and they're like surrounding and they're moving into Donetsk, and their Russian army is grinding away at these cities right now, and this is part of the Donbass region. But they said they're dealing with the same thing they did in Mariupol, which Ukrainian soldiers are hiding or hunkering down in apartment buildings. Um, and the buildings that aren't empty, they have people that live there, and Russia has to slowly sort through the soldiers from the civilians, and so it's not good. Um, and Western propaganda, they said that maybe Russia's not as bad as they thought. Some of them are saying that they're going to go in and slaughter innocent people. And some are even saying that they're slow and old. And the Soviet army turns out to be a nothingness. But this is all propaganda. And not only that, but they don't want to hurt the civilians because of what's happened in the last 100 days. And so now it's basically put the pressure on the Azov battalion. Now, what is going on that I want me and William to go over is there are many battalions or platoons or
and two brigades.
And two brigades that they're walking away, and this is Ukraine. They said they're tired. They want to go home. They want to be with their families. They were part of the civilians that were forced into the army. If the viewers remember that, it was everybody 60 and younger, I think to 18, that had to fight. Well, now these guys want to go home. They're done. They said they were handed guns and just told to shoot. They didn't feel properly trained. And the thing about it, folks, is I was listening to them surrendering and listening to them read scripts. Well, scripts, or maybe they wrote it down. Some of them didn't read scripts. Now, I got a problem with scripts, and I told William this, that to me, it just reminds me of my memory of Vietnam, or maybe it was some after, where they had the paper in front of them and they were being forced to read. But William's got some good info on that. So, William, go ahead.
So the troops won't read the scripts unless they think they have something to gain. And so what they do is they'll use coded language around the scripts, like the way they part their hair. They'll use Morse code with the way they blink, body movements, whatnot, so they can get important information out. Otherwise, they wouldn't read those scripts. But, it's worth reading the scripts if you get information out to your army.
Mm-hmm. So, but they have, it's a surrender, but I believe some of them, I think half of them, the ones without the scripts, I think, are the ones that were able to put down their rifles or leave the military and just walk away. The ones with the scripts, I believe, are the ones that had to surrender. What do you think on that idea? That's my opinion, though.
So, when they're reading scripts, they're prisoners of war.
Yeah.
They're not just allowed to walk into society as regular people. If the people walk away and then surrender and say, hey, I just don't want to be in the military, I don't want any part of it, then they'll just let those people assimilate into Russia's society. But if they're combative, then they'll be made prisoners of war, and then later down the road, towards the end of war, there'll be an exchange of Russians and Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians will be able to go home. Now, the ones that just surrender and walk away, they'll never go home.
Yeah. The other thing is this is showing you, there was what, 5 of them, 5 different groups. It shows you that the Ukrainian military, the civilians, they're going to go. That just sounds like that they're leaving, which leaves the military itself. But with them kicked out, and this is my concern, is Zelensky and Putin both said they want to get together and negotiate. And at this point, Putin has gone as far as I think he's going to go. Maybe. I don't want to press my luck on that one. What it is, he'll have all those states, and he'll have to move protection all the way up to the line. Again, he'll have to push forward. And so I know he wanted Odessa. So the only thing I could think of is Odessa would be the last place. Now, there is rumors that NATO wants to go after Crimea. And so and they're sending more military equipment, and now they're sending the rockets that could reach into Russia. So I really think this is just to the point where it should be between Putin and Zelensky, because it just sounds like this is a war for, just like the people are saying, they're tired of fighting the war for the United States, is what some of those that walked away. And some of the people are even saying they've had it because they no longer want to be a part of the United States going after Russia when they're ready to settle down and come back and rebuild Ukraine. Some cities like Mariupol, they're rebuilding. So you want to add anything to that, William?
Yeah, so there were 12 Ukrainian units that left. A lot of them were small, like platoons and squads, whatnot. But there were three big ones, the 18th Marine Battalion and 14th Brigade and a motorized brigade that stood down. So you're talking about 5,000 to 8,000 people. Now, they've been fighting for 100 days now. And so they're probably going to talk about having talks so that Russians and Ukrainians can rotate their people out. That's what we're starting to see is they get battle fatigued after about 100 days. You have to rotate people out and new people in. And with these people walking away, it's telling the Ukrainian government, okay, we finally got to the time where we're going to have to rotate frontline people out, because you got to remember, this isn't a fast-moving war anymore. It's more like trench warfare. It's just trading bullet for bullet and going nowhere. Now, they talk about Russia going slow, but you have to remember, Russia doesn't do blitzkrieg or combined arms, shock and awe like the United States and Germany and whatnot. So they move in a different way than the West does. So don't think that because they've slowed down, they've stopped. They'll keep pressing on in their way, and they are moving into civilian areas, and they do have to do what's called what do they call it? It's like city and street warfare, where you actually have to go room to room. And it's dangerous stuff because, anytime you kick in a door, you don't know what's on the other side. And, there's a lot of propaganda going on, even from people like Wall Street. They believe they've got some MI6 documents that Russia broke ranks in the hundreds, which is, we don't know. But hundreds is a lot different than thousands. What else do we got here?
Now I got a list of some of the who left. Let's see, the 13th Battalion, the 58th Motorized Infantry Brigade, the 2nd Company, 3rd Platoon, the 115th Brigade, 3rd Platoon of the 115th, and again 6 last week. Now it's doubled. So let's see, the 30th mechanized, I'm sorry, brigade, the 3rd Battalion. So yeah, there's let's see, the 30th mechanic. They had widescreen for microphone. So they were able to talk into a microphone and read a script. And that's when I was thinking, boy, that just don't look right. So there was quite a few of them. They, not only that, the 35th, they said, theirs was a surrender video. The Ukrainian 14th and 6th Battalion, they said there are 3 different groups that went ahead and left. So there's, of course, a lot of them that are quitting. And what Western propaganda, which would be us, they're basically twisting it and saying, oh, Russia's backing out, Russia's losing people, but they're not saying anything about Ukraine. So really sending $40 billion in weapons, I think it's collapsing. But you know that, like William said, there these the Azov Battalion and the military, they're going to march on. They're just going to keep marching on. So, um, if you want to say anything,
Well, some of this is, look, United States, look, Europe, we need overflight. We need a no-fly zone because we can't move. We're pinned down here. We can't break the back of the Russians because of our inability to knock out important structures that they have in their war fighting. So that's what's going on as well, kind of under the carpet. The other thing that's going on is in the West, there's this thing about food shortages, and that Vladimir is somehow in charge of the world food supply, which is, kind of bunk, really. He's in charge of Russia's food supply and what food he's taken in the Donbass, but, it's not the whole world's food supply.
Yeah. Now, Lavrov, he told journalists in Moscow, now that's Sergei Lavrov, and he said basically, there was one point he said they couldn't get the ships out of the Black Sea because of mines. Well, they've corrected the problem, and now what it is they are being stopped and not allowed to go through because I believe it's Sweden that's telling them.
Turkey and Sweden, so They've got to go through either the Baltic or they have to go through the Black Sea. Turkey controls the opening to the Black Sea.
Right.
And Sweden and Denmark control the Baltic, really.
Yeah, and because of the sanctions, they're not allowed to get out. So it's a farce that Putin is not sending boats. He's trying, or cargo. And so he is trying. And so what they wanted to let everybody know is they're still looking for ways. It's not that he's holding the food and grain and everything away from the world. It's now it's the sanctions and him being stopped. And soon as he can correct this, and I think that's what
they have to do is load foreign ships rather than Russian ships to transport it. So they're going to have to offload from Russian ships and put them onto other ships, friendly ships, we'll call them, so they can transit those choke points.
I lost my train of thought there. Now, the thing with that, though, William, is if the sanctions are in place, isn't Biden supposed to be going down there, meet with him in like, I think, 3 weeks? That might be what they're trying to discuss. I'm not real sure.
So Biden's going down to talk to the EU at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going to be discussed there. And then I don't know if he's going to talk to Putin before or after, whether he's going to bring Putin's message or he's going to deliver EU, NATO's message to Putin. We'll just have to see.
But pretty much, I think, wrapping it all up with, they're all pretty much in Donbass. And at one point, Russia has got them surrounded. So once they do what they did, like they said, Mariupol, where they hunkered down and went in hiding, this is going to be pretty much the last of it. So it really depends if NATO wants to go after Crimea or if Russia wants to go after Odessa. I think we're really getting to where Ukraine's losing so many out of its army that it's time to, like go into almost like a phase 3, where they're going to have to really look and see if Ukraine still wants to move on now that all this weaponry is going in there. But there's no way to get it to them in the middle of, well, I bet there is, in the middle of Donbass to save anybody. They're basically just going to have to hold the line right there where Russia's going to have to hold their line. And I just hope it doesn't go back to separatist fighting, because they, neither Ukraine nor Russia needs it. And these separatists just need to be, I think, scooped up by the Soil and Green trucks myself, and told, let's just, everybody part, everybody just have a border, and and let the two leaders discuss where to go on from here and what they want. Because I think it's pretty much, my own opinion is what I'm hearing from my reporters on the ground is Ukraine is surrounded, and now it's basically a third phase to figure out where they want to move this war. So, and of course, Ukraine losing their civilian fighters. So I think it kind of, they need to re-examine what's going on over there, and how they want to either move on with the war, or if they want to go ahead and call a negotiation. But you said earlier they can't stop.
No, NATO. So, of the sins that have been committed, you've got the ones that are happening on the battlefield. But the greatest military and civil sin that has happened was when Russia crossed into a neighbor state's border. Okay? And so Russia owns the worst of all that's happened. And NATO's not going to be able to allow that. If they allow it, he'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to want to push him back to his original borders. And Zelensky's pledging victory today. But we don't really know what Zelensky's victory is. The NATO wants the Crimea back. They want all of Ukraine back, and they're training people with the new MLRS, self-propelled multiple launch rocket systems. We've got two of them. One's tracked, one's wheeled, and they think that'll be a game changer. I don't think it'll be a game changer. I think they'll just be swapping rockets for rockets. It'll just get a little more deadly. Until Ukraine has serious overflight, they're not going to be able to move forward against Russia. There's been, in modern times, since World War II, nobody's moved forward without having control of the airspace.
Yeah. So pretty much that is the wrap-up of Ukraine. Now I want to move on to China, because China is, I'm saying, being sneaky and sneaking around a lot of them islands, and I'll get to that in a minute. But
Elly,
yeah.
Before we go, I'd like to say that, we've got some bad things happening here in the West as well. We don't know if these food plants that are all catching fire, scorching them, they could be Russian-inspired. They could be something else inspired.
China.
But the United States has had a whole bunch of food plants that have gone up recently.
Yeah, me and Mary's been keeping track of those, and it's very interesting because it was a chicken. The last one was a chicken plant, and all of a sudden, chicken went up overnight. I mean, I was surprised. And then I think a silo was the other one. And it would be like, who would do this? And a lot of people, that's the question. Would it be China? Would it be Russia? Would it be our own? Would it be Antifa?
Could it be a fault? be a false flag, so
Antifa.
go in and open the Ukrainian ports up for them.
Yeah.
In the Donbass. So we don't really know, but we know it's happening, and it's going to be used as an argument.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be used against us for getting food. And it'll be, well, I wonder if they're going to ban fires. Have a hearing on ban. No, I'm teasing. But as much as they're doing on the guns, you would think they would ban fires. I kind of get the feeling that it's Antifa grown. Antifa does stuff like this, to where they go and they started quite a few fires in the West, and they were caught. They were able to put them out quickly, but that's the only ones I know that are fire starters and would do something like this. But we don't know until, and we haven't even heard that the Garland is even going to look into it. He hasn't even spoken on it. And, that's what concerns me, is they're not even addressing it. And they keep saying, no, none of them are connected. They kind of investigated it, and nothing connects each of these happenings. And so they're just going to watch. Well, they're watching as these things are burning up. This is very concerning, because how many we got? 50, or we had 50, I think 58 or 59 in the country. And we're looking at almost half of them now. So that's very concerning to me. And also the whole thing with the baby formula. And you sent me an article, but I even knew about it about a week ago when I showed pictures of the baby formula and baby food on the shelves in Mexico and Canada. But we can't go either place and just go get it. Why are we going overseas? And what they're getting overseas isn't enough.
Well, it's U.S. baby formula. That's the thing, is their shelves are fully stocked with U.S. baby formula, but there's not U.S. baby formula in the United States. That's odd, to say the least.
Yeah. So, moving over to China, the one thing that concerned me this week was Blinken. He got up and he was just like, I don't know, something was wrong with him. He wasn't his old speechy self. I don't know. I listen to Blinken, and I make fun of him being one of the reindeers, but I listen to him, and something changed in his speech this week. Almost like someone whipped him and said, this is what you're going to read. Do you remember it, William? It was, he had, his strategy is invest, align, and compete. And how we need to work with China. And he was very submissive, and let's be nice to China. Let's work with China. We can create a friendship, a partnership with China. And then he said, but China isn't right, but why what they're doing to Taiwan. It was just a really weird speech. And that concerned me, because I have a feeling that he just didn't want to come out and say, we're going to do like we did with Ukraine. We're going to stand back. We're going to give Taiwan all of the firepower they want. And then we see, go ahead.
So Blinken is probably bowing to the pressure, financial pressure coming to the United States because of the failing economy, and he's going to want to talk to points that make Wall Street happier, so that the stock market will go up and they'll be able to do better in the election. So a lot of this that's happening has to do with elections more than it has to do with anything real.
Yeah, and then while Biden was over there, it was They had the Quad, like a Quad summit with South Korea, Japan, the United States, and I think Australia was there. I know I'm missing one. Philippines, maybe?
No, India.
India, that was it. I was picturing, but I couldn't figure out where it was. So they had, and what they did is they decided to do exercises together, which when they started doing that is when we seen um, the the CCP army start flying low over and started doing their own exercises with Russia. Now, William, what I find interesting is here is the main force that's going to protect Taiwan. And then all of a sudden, um, Russia and China are kind of like doing their own exercises and they're almost side by side. And what I think it was is the seeing the what would you call it? The power of the will of who's better than who. That's kind of what I got from it.
So there's two things going on simultaneously there.
Mm-hmm.
We're sending out our destroyers into Japan, our best destroyers, not just destroyers, but our very best destroyers. And China's been fielding some new submarines. So we're putting a lot of pressure on the submarines. So what happens is when we put pressure on the subsurface fleet of China, they start putting pressure on us with Army and air flight, air power overflight. So this is a give and take right there, and China is flexing its muscle so that we'll take our focus off from their subs, because every time we hunt one of their subs, we don't shoot them, but we learn things about them to make it so that they can't sneak past.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want that, and we're moving those destroyers in to hunt them, and China's not happy about it at all, neither is Russia.
Well, it was one of the shows I was watching. They were saying that China really hasn't had a chance to do exercises with their Navy. That's where they're weak. And I'm starting to wonder that myself, is that that's what it is. Now, the other thing is they had these exercises, and then when Biden gets on the plane to go, then North Korea sends a missile up. It's almost like, he kind of gave them the boot and don't come back kind of message.
Really?
Yeah.
So they gave the United Nations North Korea control of the arms control forum for 50 countries. And so what Korea is doing is just giving the other members that don't go along with what they want in the arms control forum the big finger.
That just totally surprised me. It was like the UN did what? They're going to put him in charge of basically a weapons
control forum, yeah.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah, it's designed to prevent the escalation of conflict, but North Korea uses it to escalate it.
Well, I guess he's king, so he could do it, and the rest of the peoples aren't supposed to do it. That's like that's to me what, when I was listening to the speech, I was like, he's like pretending he's king, and he gets to shoot his missiles, but don't none of you do that now. Don't use me as an example because I'm king.
Might be his sister.
Huh?
It could be his sister flexing muscle as well within the.
Yeah, she got quiet.
Korean Communist Party.
She got real quiet, and so I don't like quiet. Quiet makes me very nervous with these leaders, and I'm wondering if she isn't the one that insisted that missile get shot off as Biden was leaving. I wouldn't put it past her.
She's a dangerous bidder.
Yeah. So, Now you mentioned the submarines, and I know I sent you a huge clip on it. It was about a 10-minute clip. And what I'm finding out and looking into this afternoon was China is coming up with a submarine fleet. Now, what I was reading earlier on an article was they have their nuclear sub, and then they have the other subs that can hold the missiles, and then others like they're creating a little fleet. And I heard they've got a second fleet and working on a third now.
So
go
they
ahead.
have hunter-killer subs. Those are subs that kill other subs and kill surface ships. And then they have ballistic missile submarines that, carry nuclear weapons. It could be conventional weapons as well that they can launch from sea. That's the reason they really want Taiwan. Remember I told you that it's hard for them to hide in shallow water. They want to be able to get to deep water quickly, and if they have Taiwan, they've got an instant land-to-ocean interface with deep ocean, and they'll be able to put those subs out instead of having to drive them out from ports and whatnot. They can just shoot them deep underground out into the oceans, and they won't be seen, and they're hard to track that way. So that's why they want Taiwan. Is they want to get their miners in there so they can create their underwater sub bases.
Well, the article, it was saying that this is something that other countries haven't thought of yet or haven't done. And they're the first, and they got their second one they're working on that'll be done by the end of the year, and they're going to go on their third. And what gets me is China is so far ahead of us as far as military stuff. But now we're finding out their weaknesses, their Navy. And if this is what they're putting all that money into, they still have to do exercises, and I'm not sure they have the time now. I think with...
So, in World War II, the United States submarines were the great equalizer against Japan, and China learned that lesson. So because they don't have fleets of aircraft carriers, they have to do island hopping. They're going to want to make sure they've got plenty of submarines, and they've got two classes of hunter killers and 3 classes of ballistic missile submarines. And I can tell you the number. And these aren't just diesel submarines. These are nuclear powered submarines. So they can stay under for weeks, months, as long as their food holds out.
Yeah. Now get this. This isn't a new one that I've heard, and it was just a little small. China is looking at a militia of pirates. I believe if they're talking pirates, that would be Somalia. That they have got bigger ships now out of the blue. And so I looked at the pirates of Somalia. And come to find out, Somalia has been taking cargo ships and holding them hostage. They got like 8 of them. And then I seen where they do have bigger ships. But I don't know my ships and, naval ships enough to say if those were what China gave them, or how they acquired them, or if they pirated them. They could have went and stole some ships too. But and then I had seen where China's they're looking at a militia of and it's pirates. Not only that, get this, they're now building robots to fight underwater. That was the other one I heard when I was looking up tech news, and I seen that and I thought, well, that's different. They've been trying to get the universal robot soldier, but they're wanting something to go underwater now. So that's something that they're trying out. Um, Now, you mentioned China island hopping, and this is very concerning because we had Samoa and Easter. No, I think Easter backed out, but the Samoans didn't. But now they're going to go
I've
back.
got the list.
Huh?
I've got the list of countries.
Okay.
So they want to move their common development vision, their 5-year action plan, into Micronesia, Solomons, Vanuatu, Kiribati, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, Niue, and the Cook Islands.
Mm-hmm. Now, folks, those islands are all clustered together. Maybe when I show you the earthquake map again, I'll show you where all those islands are right there. And they're talking about they're offering them not only the Belt and Road, but the most high-tech internet service and 5G to go on these islands. This is what they're offering them. And the thing about it was, what they want to do is they want as many places for the internet, and so they can listen, so they can get more intel on people around the world. It isn't just about giving Fiji internet, because a lot of them, like Papua New Guinea, a lot of them people can't afford computers. Makes no sense. So this is, yeah, go ahead.
So what they're doing is they're wanting to bring in Confucius Institutes into their school, like the United States and Canada just had removed. Of course, like you said, they want to do the cyberspace, electronic control of their airways, like, remember Huawei? But they also want to have control of the country's fisheries. They want to train their local police, like they did in Hong Kong, so the police can monitor citizens. They also want to put bases with ties to the military, and exchange have security exchanges like they did in the Solomon Islands. And then, of course, they want to do that one China policy. And I would warn them, don't sign those agreements, because they would be giving away their food, control of their land. They'll be decimated, and they won't have any way to fight back. And that whole arc of islands goes all the way around the South Pacific, almost to South America. So it's a dangerous thing.
Yeah,
that's how they want to do their Navy. They're going to want to island hop because they don't have the carriers to stand up against the United States.
The mouse. I'm not touching the mouse. It's got to be something that I got to check out, I guess. I'm not sure. I tried moving William back to see if that helped, and my sound down. Because I'm not sure if it's coming from William's noise or if it's actually something in this room. Everything here is quiet, and there's nothing on, so I'm not sure. Now the other thing, William, is the fishing. They're disguising and hiding in the midst of fishing. They'll put a battleship in the middle. But not only that, they have bought like, dozens of these fishing craft. And what they're doing is they're moving out. I think you just said something about there's no fish around China. So they're going to have to go out. And that's where not only Australia has issues, but even as far as South America, they're having issues. And Madagascar is another one that's shooing them away.
At the rate China's fishing right now, all tuna in the Pacific will be gone in 10 years. And if you take a place like Samoa, Star-kissed is the main employment
Tuna.
there in American Samoa. So this is big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the non-American Samoa signs a treaty, what happens to the fish stocks in American Samoa?
That's right.
So it's a bad deal.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't be able to come in and protect those countries if we have to push our Navy over the top of these Chinese 100 attack class submarines. It's going to be difficult to dislodge them if war starts.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that,
And,
but they're putting up a lot of bases too.
right. And the trawlers you talk about, that's what the fishing boat's called, they're not necessarily trawlers. These are boats that could have, what do you call them, torpedoes.
Mm-hmm.
They could have hidden missile launchers. And if China is using pirates, see what happens is if a pirate takes a ship, they take it to China. China pays the pirate,
Mm-hmm.
or the pirates get to keep the load. China gets to keep the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and then the pirates aren't jailed or anything, and it will require the United States to police that sort of thing. While in the midst of these trawlers that can be anything but trawlers, they may be slow, but they can still be very dangerous, and you have to get in amongst them to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. And the other thing is me mentioning they want to put in bases. And that was the big thing that Australia was like, they say they kicked themselves because what they're doing is they're slowly taking over the resources in Australia. And that's what they'll do on these islands. Even remember me talking about Papua New Guinea where that guy had his farm and they came in and they basically made him leave. They stripped his property of all the trees, and they could care less about the farming stuff. They just stripped all the trees out of it and then left. And they're going after resources. And in Australia,
they use their economic police. They
mm-hmm.
have police that are within these Chinese companies that are basically economic police
mm-hmm.
that go around and threaten people and take their things because they have power and these small people can't stand up to them, and the country won't do anything about it.
Yeah, and they got that new guy in that's kind of, like rubbing elbows with China. The thing about it is they're going after the gold and the opals. And now you're starting to see that, are you, okay, I thought I lost you for a sec.
Australia has a huge amount of gold. And they need energy resources.
Yes. And what they're doing is they're going and they're buying planes out from underneath some of the gold miners and the ones that do the caves even. And they're doing the same thing with opals. And they're just pushing their way in and saying, we'll go 50-50 with you. And eventually what they're saying is they're taking over the gold industry out there. And then now it's even moved into opals. So
they need gold for the production of electronics because every electronic chip has little gold fine hairs that go from the chip out to the leads that are then soldered to the motherboards. And each one of those mega chips, like we have for Intel and AMD, require hundreds and hundreds of those little hair-like gold threads, and it adds up over time. And they want to overblow us, especially with where they want to do little mini submarines that are like drones, so they can build those faster than the big man submarines, and they need electronic chips for the computing power to be put in those mini 100 attack
Yeah. And not only that, but then getting back to all these different countries, uh, they're wanting to make sure they get uh, airstrips and military bases on there as quick as
Right.
possible, and that's what they're after. They claim that the one gentleman, I want to say, mm, we I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's their ambassador, and he keeps saying that he's going to go around all these islands, and he's going to talk to them, and he's going to say that this would help their economy and give them jobs because they would be opening these military bases, and that it would maybe even save them from their own countries going under. Yeah, I mean, they got this great big plan. So this is very
His name was Wang Yi.
Yeah, that's it.
And he was going to 7 of the nations
Yep.
personally, and then he's doing 3 over the internet.
Yeah. And so he's going. Well, they sent one gentleman around. I can't remember who it was, and then I heard it was one of China's top generals that went and talked to. I believe it was when they did Samoa, and even
Island.
Yeah, Solomon Island. Okay, and
Yeah.
so they're wooing them, and I bet they're offering lots of money, lots and lots of money to them to do this.
And corrupt officials will take the money and leave their countries.
Yep, that's true.
They'll take the money, and then when China is in control of the country, just before that happens, they'll pack up with their dollars, try to go to the United States, go to Europe, whatever. We need to make sure those people don't have a place to go if they do that.
Yeah. Or they can go to Japan.
Yeah, we need to keep them out of the free world when they take their money and run, because they've done us a real disservice by basically handing the Chinese some stationary battleships and aircraft carriers.
Yep. So, I know there was one more thing I was going to mention. Now, we were talking about North Korea's sister. Now, I said she was quiet. Now, she has been, rumors has it that he's sick, and that she's going to might be taking over for him. I don't know how true that is, but they're saying that towards, in the next 4 years, she wants to be in power. I don't know.
If I met that gal in a dark alley, I would not want to be unarmed. She is a dangerous critter. I'm serious.
Yeah, I think she would shoot one of them nuclears at somebody. But they keep talking Hawaii, and I don't know why he's got it in for Hawaii. Because him and her, she's even now. I'm starting to hear it from her. Another Pearl Harbor, and it's like, no, Hawaii hadn't done nothing to you guys. I think it's because
Hawaii is where the United States projects its power into the Pacific. Hawaii, they're in San Diego, up there also in San Francisco, and then up here in Washington. And we project power in these places, and the Chinese can't really go in and threaten Hawaii. But, North Korea can be, a crazy wild card without messing with China's diplomacy. So I think that's what's going on is China's allowing North Korea to be stupid.
Okay, Karen, what's up in chat? I don't know what's up, but I do want to say right now is a good time. If you have a question, about all this week of all the shows, whether it be the CIA guy or corruption. Oh, okay. Um, um, or anything that we've had on the show, or even tonight's show. Um, please throw it in comments right now. If you're over on Facebook, put it down below and it should pop up for me to be able to see. So if any of you have a question or a comment on this of what you think, please put it in the chat right now. My biggest question over this whole week, or not really a question, it was, William, did you notice that Hillary and the Clintons weren't really a big part of Ukraine? That was surprising. I figured they'd have at least a little toe in there to be part of it. But the only thing I can think of...
They deal with the banks. They'll get their kickbacks from the banks that'll finally come out of Europe. They're not going to be, directly involved like Biden's son or
right. Well, you know what I'm thinking it is it was what, 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago? I should have pulled it up earlier. They were a big part of doing biolabs, and I think that's what they helped Ukraine with. So really that's their part, and then they just kind of get the kickbacks from it. But it sounds like something they would do, because there's quite a few biolabs in Africa, and one of them is the AIDS lab, and that's the one that the William Jefferson Clinton Foundation is part of, and it gives to NIH. And
so how that works is they get a kickback of the USAID funds, the World Bank funds, through the Treasury and also through the State Department, and they have a whole deal set up so that they can fund all their Democratic parties and stuff like that. They don't necessarily really need donors, because all these public-private partnerships can donate to political action committees, and then those then donate to the people who are running.
So, yeah, the other thing is we are looking at those biolabs. If some of the new viewers might not know that these were old, broken down, according to Putin, when he lost track of them, or he no longer wanted them. They were built back in the early 50s. And he was surprised to see that Ukraine had rebuilt and remodeled and have got them open and running again. So that was something that he found out in this small war, or not small, but this war with Ukraine. And it's been mentioned by my reporters on the ground. That's one of the reasons why he's hesitant to go further. One is the grains and the farming land that is past Donbass, and going to the center of Ukraine. But the other is all of the biolabs that are spread out. And not only that, I think when we talked earlier, I always thought that Chernobyl was run by Russia. And over the last few years, I think since Zelensky's been in office, that they turned it over to Ukraine. And now it's leaking all the way to Kyiv. And so they're not sure what Kyiv is going to do, if they're looking at an evacuation or what they have to do. It's what it sounds like is the rest of Chernobyl's having a meltdown. That's what I think. So I don't think I'm not touching my mouse. I haven't.
So Chernobyl is under a sarcophagus, the part that melted down. The other part's actually delivering power. And it took thousands of Russian men dying from radiation poisoning to put that concrete sarcophagus over it. Well, now Ukraine's in a position they're going to have to apply another sarcophagus over it, so many feet with, steel reinforcement and all that stuff, and have to put workers in harm's way, which means they can only have workers in there for minutes. Then they have to pull them out and put another group in for minutes to do a little bit more work. So it takes a huge number of workers to be able to do that safely. So what does he do in a time of war? Well, they're going to have some leakage. That's bad. That's bad news. And there was always a little bit of leakage, but it's been getting worse because cracks in the sarcophagus is letting water drip down into the core, and it's heating up and creating more cracks in that sarcophagus, putting more pressure on it. So they're going to have to seal that thing back up. And
Yeah.
Zelensky needs to be out of the war to do that.
Yeah. And it needs to be done soon, because if they're getting radiation all the way to the border of the city of Kyiv. That's very concerning, especially since they're evacuating people through that way. There could be all kinds of radiation exposure to families that they had to go through Chernobyl to get into Poland. And they can't blame Putin for that. They can't.
Well, they have to go south of Chernobyl. You never know which way the winds are going to blow,
That's right.
There's a whole dead zone there that's irradiated. The plants are irradiated. The pollen's irradiated. And when that stuff blows and you're traveling through, you breathe it in.
Yeah. So, do you have anything final to say for the show?
Yeah. They talk about brigades and companies and divisions. I'm just going to talk about what unit sizes are in the military. We'll just start out with the team. A team is just 4 soldiers, and 2 teams is a squad, and 2 squads is a section, and 2 sections, is a platoon. So you get to platoon, you're talking 24 to 30. Then a company, you have 2 platoons. Then a battalion, you could have 2 companies. And companies, so you're talking about 1,000. Brigade, you're talking about 3,000. Division, another 3 brigades. Then you get up to corps, and then finally field armies. So the 8,000 they lost, that walked away wasn't insignificant, but it's also not a game changer either.
Yeah. So.
Also, I'd like to talk about different types of Chinese subs really quick. So, in Chinese sub language, they have models, and the 091 is the oldest of theirs. They have 3 of those that are they can propel. And then the 93 class, they have 6, and then the 96 class, they have 2 and 6 that they're going to build. The Type 92s, they have 2 of 2. The Type 94s, they have 6 of 8 they want to build. So the 93s and the 95s are the new hunter killers. And the 96, the 92s, the 94s are missile subs. So if you wonder about that, that's what's going on with the sub names.
Yeah. It just surprised me with the fleets. My final thing is, the biggest thing that surprised me this week was learning that they're doing submarine fleets. And it's something I've never heard of before. When I went and was looking it up, there's not much on it. All it would say was that they built 1 fleet. They're working on a 2nd fleet that will be pretty much done by the end of the year, and then they're going to work on a 3rd. And they were kind of like, ha ha ha, the United States, UK, and no other countries have done this yet. And it was like, oh, scary. But see,
So really, really, really expensive to build aircraft carriers, and it takes a long time, and it takes about a fourth of the time to build a submarine, and they can be almost as lethal. So what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. And we're
Fly
so
above the
far
surface
behind.
or fly below the surface?
I blame Obama. Well, I'm going to blame from the Clinton and Bush, Obama, because they tore our military down. They didn't keep us up to par. And not only that, but the Clintons sold so many secrets, military and nuclear secrets to China that I think it moved them ahead of us. But I'm happy to know that they're very weak in their Navy, and they're going to have to get boats in the water to do exercises and drills before they can even go up against us. But you know,
Well,
we don't know what they're doing underwater. They might be already.
yeah, so if we get in a war, those people that have invested in China are going to look very, very bad.
Mm-hmm.
And they should really think about if they're going to invest in China anytime soon,
Mm-hmm.
because you could end up with some severe political blowback should the United States survive.
Mm-hmm. So, and we didn't get no questions, so I guess we did pretty good this week. So tomorrow night it's back to news and trivia, and the next week I'll bring the mermaids back for Monday, and then we'll be doing news and throughout the week. So we'll be back on track, and we got our investigator news 2 back, and we're just going to build from there. And William, thanks for co-hosting. Um, I think the viewers really do. I still think you got fans over there in Facebook land, because they like you over there.
Okay.
So, all right. So it's Friday night, and I hope you guys go put a really good movie in and get some popcorn and visit with the family. And I'll be back tomorrow night. And thank you, William, for co-hosting.
Really?
Yeah.
There's some real good entertainment out there in Top Gun Maverick. It's not exactly technically correct, but it's family and military and how some parts of the government think and work. So, it might be fun to go out and watch that.
Yeah, get out and see a movie. The weather's wonderful for it. And of course, we want you to subscribe and hit the bell and hit follow over there in Facebook. And we thank Greg over there in Facebook. He shares a lot of our videos. And I like to thank him every now and then. Also, hit that like button. And the more likes we get, the more we get seen in the mainstream views of YouTube and Facebook. So, that is it for tonight, and I will see everyone tomorrow night for some trivia. William, you going to win Susan tomorrow night?
Oh, she's just going to grease me. You know how it works.
Yeah, she's really good. We're going to have to keep an eye on her.
I don't mind losing to her because, at least it's expected.
Karen, we're going to have like this duel between Karen and Nick, see who's the best. Because Nick's pretty good too. When he plays, he's pretty good. So, new viewers, if you guys like trivia, join us tomorrow night. So, with that, I will see everyone tomorrow, and have a wonderful Friday night, and enjoy your Saturday. Bye-bye, folks.